Welcome back to the channel, and you join me on a wet and miserable Monday evening. I'm en route at the moment to a customer's house to pick up their 2011 Seat Leon, so 1.6 diesel model, which has got a failed clutch master cylinder. It's a car I've already had a look at earlier on to diagnose that. It's a pretty common fault on that platform anyway. Yeah, I've picked up the key already, but I'm just leaving it this late in the day so I can attempt to drive the car back with the failed master cylinder. It's not like when a clutch is burnt out and you've got no drive to the wheels. When you've got like a broken hydraulics or a clutch cable on an older car, your master or slave cylinder's gone on a hydraulic system. Basically all that means is that your clutch is permanently engaged. So the only issue, so basically when you drive it, you can have it in first gear, turn the starter and kangaroo start to drive, and then you can try and time the synchro to change gear into second, and yeah, and basically I don't think I want to be coming out of second on the trip back, but yeah, the ideal scenario is you wouldn't have to stop, so that's why I've left it this late, just so traffic's at a minimum. I've made a little sign up that just says two A4 sheets taped together. I've just wrote no clutch across it, which I'll just tape in the back window in case anybody does sort of come up behind me and then wonder why I'm sort of kangarooing and hopping about. God, I'm so out of shape, it's not even that far. And I also told the customers I'll just obviously jump in and grab the car, because if I can get it sort of started and going, I want to just head straight off, because once we're going I really don't want to stop. The only slight issue with modern car, I know it's a 2011, but Volkswagen were VAG, they were quite ahead of the game on having these cars where you have to press the clutch before it would let you start. I know it's good practice to press the clutch anyway, but these make you, and this car's no exception. But because the master cylinder's gone, the clutch pedal is already to the floor and won't come back up, despite the fact that the clutch itself physically is against the flywheel. So the car should hopefully think that the clutch pedal is down. Well, it is down, but the clutch is disengaged and let me start the car. But because it is actually engaged and the car will be in first, obviously it'll kangaroo start, and I'll just try and hit the throttle, and yeah, I'm hoping the car will run like that, but we'll find out shortly. I'll see you over there. Laura, she blows. Right, so let's get started. The first thing we have here is the Beck replacement master cylinder. It's part number BCM123. I'm quietly confident it's the right one, but I have noticed there are some different types to this. This car is a late Mark II, I believe, this lay-on. It's I think it's facelift because it's a 61 plate, and the Mark IIs ran from, I don't know, whenever they started to 2012, so something to not be confused with, because the Mark III is even more tricky, this process. I think the book time is actually 8 hours, somebody quoted, but whether it works out to that in real life, I've no idea. But I think it's I've heard some people say it can take them 2, but I'm not sure if the book time's 3, maybe 4 hours on this Mark II. But we'll find out. First things first then, actually I'll show you the master cylinder, because it can give you a good idea of what actually needs doing from this end. This is how it fits, just coming out of the pedal box. This is the feed for the brake fluid reservoir that you can just see here. A pipe comes off there to feed the brake fluid into the master cylinder here. It's got an electronic doohickey on here, no idea what that's for. I'm guessing it's something to do with how it knows if the clutch is in to do an engine start, or the start-stop system, whether it engages or disengages it, but don't quote me on that. That's sort of the issue I found when I was trying to drive the car back, because the clutch sort of didn't know where it was electronically. I had the start-stop going off when I was trying to drive it back without the clutch, but it would actually allow me to start when it's a push to start car. But that's sort of electronic-y stuff which I leave to others, and part of the reason I don't really like modern cars, because they're made overcomplicated for no reason. Anyway, before I waffle on moaning about stuff, this is the pipe where you take the where the pressurized hydraulic fluid comes out, and that will run all along the back of the bulkhead, and just under the airbox area here is where the gearbox is. So hopefully on the top of here is the where the pipe comes down to the slave cylinder. That's what would have to bleed it from later on in this process. And let's just have a look at this. Yes, it looks to be, you'd need to pull this out. This is it from here? Yeah, it looks like this actually slides forward. I did notice some come out sideways, but this clip had come out. This is just a dust cover, and then the pipe that you put in, you need to make sure that there's a seal on still remaining on that, because it's not present on the replacement part. So that's something to bear in mind, because when you actually get to it, you're not going to be able to see much of what's going on under here, because the access is so limited. So you just want to make sure that you've got this, I think it's like if you get a seal replacement kit, it looks like a tiny top hat, and that just sits on top of this plastic component, which goes on the end of the hydraulic line that clips into here. So once that's all disconnected, this is actually a twist and pull out fitting, but obviously it's connected to the pedal box inside, so this will be like clamped into something in the pedal box, and from what I've seen, because there's a spring above it, which I'm not sure if it's the clutch return spring, because when these are failed, the clutch pedal tends to stay down, so that spring's obviously not pushing the pedal back up, even though there's no pressure behind this. I don't see why it would be stuck down if that's actually a return spring, but that's there, and that's something that's going to be in your way. So you basically do this by once this is all disconnected, you actually take the clutch pedal out from inside the car and pull it out this way, and then you can work on the whole clutch and master cylinder assembly on the bench. You don't actually do it in the car because you just can't get to anything. But let's start from the under. I did want to try and loosen up the pedal first while we've got a bit of a break from the rain, because I'm not under cover from basically the bonnet and back here. But just to make sure this is the right part before I get dug in too far. We'll just start with taking all this off. What's got to happen is I'll take the engine cover off, get the airbox out of the way, just so we can get to the top of the gearbox, bell housing, find out where the clutch line actually goes to, which will point to where the failed master cylinder is, and it looks to be some kind of, there's some exhaust. I don't think it's a cat, it's some sort of exhaust bulky bit at the back of the engine here, and it's got a heat shield on that. I'll try and take the heat shield off if the bolts or nuts aren't too rusty. Might just give us a little bit more room. And then there's like this heat like wrap behind that as well, so I think all of that's covering the original master cylinder. So yeah, we'll get on with that now. The air filter box uses T20. I don't know if I have to take the top cover off first to get to the bottom, but yeah, I've not worked on one of these before, but I'll do that just to see if there's any bolts underneath. Annoyingly, some of it's an airbox. I've got a rounded off Torx headed bolt there, so I'm going to try out a screw extractor, which I'm going to have to find. Also, that just reminds me, because I've got to bleed the clutch slave cylinder from the nipple under here. I could do with like some brake bleeding stuff, and I'm not sure if I've actually got any here or whether I've put it at my other garage, but that'll just give me the opportunity to hunt for some more tools. I had the screw extractor so I can get this air filter lid off, but I can't find my brake bleeding stuff, which probably means I've taken it to my other garage, which is 35-40 minute drive away, which is a bit of a pain in the backside. So and I can't even get the other car out because this is here. But hopefully once I get to that stage, I can probably use a little bit of fuel line or improvise something, because it's not quite as severe as doing brake bleeding. That you just once you've just put a bit of hose on it, the air should make its way to the top anyway. So the bottom of the air filter box has a T30 fitting. Right, so what I'm struggling with at the moment is you see that a lot of the heat foil stuff's coming off there anyway, but you see this like ring thing here. It's like pushes over some rods sticking out. It's only holding this heat wrap stuff on, so I've been trying to plier it off, but that's not working. Of course, I haven't even got to the thing yet. Right, this is the I don't know what you'd call it, piece of shit that's just holding on the heat shield on the back of the bulkhead there. I just ended up, pliers and stuff weren't working, so I just ended up getting a small screwdriver and just flaring out a few of these just so I can pop it off, and I could just press these back down, and then when it comes to reassembly, just push this, well, just to say it's really fiddly trying to get your hands back there, but yeah, just push it back over and that should hold the heat shield on. Failing that, just use a bit of bloody tape. So with the heat shield stuff loose, the you can see the master cylinder here. I'm pretty sure, like I said earlier, that I do have the right type. There's a bit of tape on that wiring, which is a bit worrying. Looks like somebody's been here before. But so this top, this is the access you've got basically. You've got to do it all from here. Hope that you haven't got big hands or anything. Yeah, so this is the feed that comes from the brake master cylinder reservoir. That's just feeding the brake fluid to the top of the clutch master cylinder. I think that just pulls off, and then what I'll do is I'll try and yeah, just have it reaching higher. This has been leaking anyway, so there will be the brake fluid. The reservoir's a little low. It's been running down here for a little while, so pulling that off, obviously you will get a bit of brake fluid coming out. But it's yeah, there's already stuff there anyway. If there wasn't, if you wanted a fully sort of clean operation, as it were, obviously stuff some blue rag or towel down there just to catch it all. And of course the bulkhead is protected by this heat shielding, so it won't get on the paintwork. But yeah, that pulls off. The bottom one's the harder one, because obviously that's actually got pressurized from your pedal presses. Basically, that pressurizes the fluid down here to disengage the clutch. The wiring thing, is that just a pull? I think that's just I'm not sure if it's got anything. Can we see? Yeah. I don't know what I'm looking at now. I can't get in there properly, but yeah, so the wiring thing, whatever that does, that has to come out. And then there's a little, you know, you've got the wire thing that secures the seal on this bottom bit. So I'd imagine I'll need a pick tool to try and reach down here and pick the wire retaining clip off. And of course you'll still get brake fluid coming out of there, but as I warned earlier as well, try and look out for a top hat shaped small seal, because you want that to, if it stays with the pipe, great. If it stays with the master cylinder, it's also not a problem, because when you withdraw it, you can take the seal out and just pop it on the pipe when you reassemble. Now when you're doing something by feel like this, it can help to take the new part. Let's just turn the light on. If you take the new part, look, you can see there's a little tab on there. So this electronic plug, they've nearly always, you can't just yank them out. They've nearly always got some sort of clip that you have to press to be able to pull it out. So if you look at the one here, this is how it's orientated in the car. So by feel, there's got to be some way of releasing the plug from here. So that's what I'm going to be fiddling about with for a while. I might just try and get like a long screwdriver, or use one of the picks. So I mentioned them earlier, didn't I? So I've got a few of these. I had to get them because since I started working on anything modern, I was trying to strictly remain as a classic car mechanic, and you don't really need stuff like this. I mean, anything on a car that's from 1995 and older, you tend to be able to do with like a small flathead screwdriver and things like that. But there are exceptions, of course. But yeah, once I got to a point where cars that I'm working on that are now considered old cars are still modern as far as I'm concerned, so I've had to increase the amount of tools I had for sometimes just to do one job. But yeah, I bought a set of these. They were a US Pro. It's quite a cheap set actually, and yeah, so it does help to have a few of these, but I might try and use the back of that to press the clip down maybe and pull it back, or if not I'll just get a long screwdriver. But one of these I'll need to use to take the you can see it here, look, there you go. So I need to pull that back, but I'm not sure, because this is probably a different part. This is a Borg and Beck replacement. I'm not sure if this is OE or whether it's been replaced before, because it's a very common fault on these cars. I didn't actually check the mileage on this one, not sure how. Yeah, it's quite possibly had one changed in the past because of that bit of tape on the bit of the wiring harness there, but I don't know. But yeah, that's basically how you do it. You tuck the pick behind there, and then you can pull this. It should come out about halfway. Obviously if it does start to go further in that, catch it, because you don't want to be dropping it down the back of the bulkhead, because you never see it again. This will have an under tray and God knows what. It probably hit a million things and get stuck somewhere on the way down. I finally got the plug off. I ended up using a flathead screwdriver. If you can't get your hands in there, you probably need a longer one than this, but yeah, what I did is basically just jam the flathead here into there's like a little press clip. So the assembly itself, if there's wires going into a smaller piece, but it's actually a big block on the outside, you press the little tab on there, and then it's quite hard. I had to sort of lever it against the master cylinder, but it popped off eventually, so just keep fiddling around with it, and yeah, fingers crossed you get there. Yeah, I ended up having to get the hook underneath instead, whether that's just because I was trying it both ways, and that's the way I got successful, but it might work both ways, I'm not sure. But yeah, as soon as you get the hook on the wire retaining clip and that, I've just pulled it out to the right on this one. The replacement part comes forward, which might be an improved design, because you've got slightly better access at the front than you would at the side. But in any case, I've just got to pop that bottom hose off now, and then obviously I can't show you any of this on camera because I can barely see it myself, and I'm doing most of this by feel, and I can't reach around here while the camera's in the way. So when the assembly's out, we can go over what's been happening, and if you're doing this job yourself and that, then obviously you'll be able to relate to what I'm doing here. Right, so what ended up being a bit of a struggle was the line coming out of the bottom of the master cylinder, the main hydraulic line that goes to the slave. I've pulled the wire retaining clip all the way out, and I have managed to push it off, so it has like broken its seal, as it were, at the bottom of the master cylinder. However, there's not much movement, and there's an air conditioning line or pipe, whatever you call it, right at the back of here as well, which is a bit of a pain. Plus I'm still getting tangled up in this heat wrap shield thing, and yeah, this is just another example of why modern cars are just stupid, because here you've got the turbocharger absolutely fine, and it goes straight into this whatever it is. I don't think that's the cat, it's too small, so it might be some sort of particulate trap. But I mean, it's just in the way. It's completely unnecessary. You've got to have all this heat shielding around all the other components, just so you're not going to get premature failure on things, because of course they use a lot of plastic parts as well, so you've got to have all this extra stuff in the way based on the exhaust for emissions control. That generates a lot of heat, and then of course you've got the plastics getting hot and cold, and it makes them brittle. It's just a complete waste of time. Just have a pipe coming off of it and have a catalytic converter further down the system somewhere where it's not in the way. Anyway, so the master cylinder, I have actually, like I say, I've broken the seal as it were, so the pipe is out, but because it isn't much movement, it's still like in the master cylinder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the inside of the car now, start loosening up the pedal box assembly, and I'm hoping that once that's loose and I've got a bit of movement, I'll be able to come back round here, and if the master cylinder's like moving up and down like this a little bit, I just might be able to pull the pipe out the way. And where I mentioned that top hat seal, I can't even see or feel whether that's stuck to the master cylinder or whether it's still on the pipe. That's going to remain with the car. So Yeah, but yeah, one advantage with that heat wrap thing is that if that seal did fall, it should hopefully get caught in the heat shielding. But again, because the access is so bad, you're going to have to feel around a bit, and this isn't a job for somebody with really big hands or anything, and you do sort of need good light. One of those bendy lights or something would be handy that you could actually put down and have the light shining at the back of the bulkhead here. So yeah, we've got another awkward to reach area under the pedal box, and I'll see you around there. So we're out in the elements now, and it is due forecast rain today. It's moved on to a little bit further into this afternoon, but it's still like 20% chance.
All you fucking talk about is jacking off and farting. Do you want to get laid ever?
Right, I think for better access, there's this tiny little screw which we can get to from just above the OBD port here. That means we can take off the vents thing which blows warm or cool air towards your feet. There's a plastic one of those just along the bottom here. It's secured by a screw here on a short bracket. I'll undo that to get out of the way. There seems to be some metal bar. I'm not sure if it moves with the pedal box, but I don't think it does, because it looks like it goes further up. There's one above the brake pedal as well, but that can stay. So yeah, and then there's 3 bolts apparently holding this pedal, the clutch pedal assembly in place. So there's 2 at the bottom which are easy to access, and 1 a little bit higher up which you can do by feel, but I think it's quite easy to access. So I'll start doing that, and I'll show you as I go. Right, I don't know if you can just see that there, but on top of the OBD I've just got tiniest bit of movement. It's a T20 Torx, but I'm just undoing that bracket to take that bollocks. There it is. You see that there? That's what I'm undoing, and that short little bracket's holding on this HVAC pipe, and once that's out of the way, you'll have a better access to the clutch. Okay, it's on like one of these clip things. Once it's loose, it should just pop out. We'd never see in there. Oh yeah, there is that little fork shaped thing. That's what this fits into. Once that's loose, you just pull it down, and this sort of pops off, like most of those vent systems do. That's quite a big component out the way. And next is a metal bar. Let's try and yes. So this is the metal bar which covers the top of the pedal. You can just see that nut, not the lower one, but the one higher up there with the black surround. If I undo that, this bar should come out, and then once that's out the way, look, you've got the whole pedal assembly there with much better access. Yeah, so I doubt it'll pull back with that in the way, because if the master cylinder's on the end of it, you've got to have all this space. Oh. See behind that spring, this is where the steering wheel and cowl is. So that's the bolt we need to undo to remove the bar that goes across the clutch. It just means that you can see it. You won't be able to access it from here. You still have to go from underneath, but at least you can see what you're trying to undo. Yeah, so something that can be handy is if you pull the steering column release and lift it up, just to give you as much room as possible. So not only can you see the bolt for the, let's get the light on, not only can you see the bolt for that bracket that I showed you earlier, but the top, the clutch's top one should be visible through here, he says. You can see it, but the camera won't focus. It's where my finger's basically waggling. There's a nut there, same as the two at the bottom. It's a 13 millimeter. Just undo that. Obviously the access is a little tighter to get to this top one. Oh, here it goes, it focused a bit. Oh, I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, you should be able to see it through this hole. Yeah, if you shine some light through it or whatever. But yeah, that's where the last one is, and hopefully we'll have the pedal loose now. Yes, once it's finger loose, I'll do it by hand. It's a little bit easier getting that last nut off. Right, pedal assembly's loose now. So if you remember, like I said earlier, the pipe that joins the master cylinder to the slave cylinder, it's loose, but it's still actually in the master cylinder itself. So now there's a bit of movement in this pedal area here. The master cylinder should be moving up and down as well from the bulkhead. So hopefully I could just yeah, flip that pipe out the way, and then I can withdraw this from the pedal area. Right, so you can just see it down here. Look, the pipe is a little further down now. What I ended up doing, there still wasn't that much movement in the where the master cylinder was, so I followed the pipe back, and you can just see there it is. Look, on the bulkhead there, that's a clip to hold the pipe in place. So I've popped that off. It just seems to pull backwards, and it sort of gives it a bit of a seesaw now. There's probably another clip in the middle somewhere, but I'm damned if I can get to it. But yeah, it gives it a bit more of a seesaw effect. So that is slightly lower now, and I think I can safely withdraw the master cylinder. See if I can. What's that top hat thing? Still can't see it, but we'll find it. There's no top hat in there, so hopefully it's still on the pipe. Right, so through the hole you can now see inside the car itself. There's the little pipe at the bottom there, if it'll focus. Yeah, so on the top of there, look, you've got the small little pipe where the hydraulic fluid goes through, and then on the top, look, you've got that rubber seal around it. That's got to stay on there, because you've got to have that. It is not one supplied with the new master cylinder, so that has to go back in to ensure a proper hydraulic seal. Right, so this is the clutch pedal assembly from the Leon, and there's your master cylinder. Now further, it's going to be dripping a bit of brake fluid. So yeah, if you're near any, I've got the manta rolled back a little bit here, because obviously if that comes into contact with paintwork it can strip it. But if you're watching this as like an instructional video or for training or whatever, then obviously you couldn't see what I was doing very well once, because it was mostly by feel down the back on the bulkhead there. So yeah, this is just a push and pull fit. This is the supply pipe that takes the brake fluid from the brake master, the brake, yeah, master cylinder reservoir, and that just comes down here to feed the clutch master cylinder. And that's the which I have showed you on the replacement. That's the electronic doohickey plug thing. So the plug goes over the top of this. You've got the main stuff in there, but the body of the plug does go over here, and there's a little press tab on there. So if you get a flat screwdriver, sort of jam it onto the that release tab, and then you press it, and then you sort of push against the master cylinder, and that will pry it off as well as keep the button pressed. It just makes things a lot easier. And then finally, that's the thing that, again, I demonstrated on the new part which comes out forwards. This one here comes out sideways, so you just got to get something that can hook the metal clip out. You pull it across, and then where I struggled to get the hydraulic line off there, you press it off basically. But if you've got it loose on the bulkhead, then you've got a bit more movement. So with the pedal itself, the other side, let's have a look. I don't really know how to do this myself, so that's the. So it's not really a return spring, because once the pedal's down it doesn't really do anything, but I think it just keeps the pedal more stable. Let's get the light on. There we go. So just keep an eye on this, make sure if it does come apart I get the right way around. So I'll try and keep the pedal and spring in place if I can. So this white clip thing then, so what's happening? So I'd imagine if these are just pinched together, that should just withdraw easily. That could be famous last words, but that's what I'm going to do now. Then I'm going to try and keep this as much this together as possible. I can already tell with the new part that this is a twist and push fit as well. So you just turn this counterclockwise and it will withdraw, but obviously we have to take this out first. So I'm not sure what recorded well there. I did try flipping this the other way up so that the pedal was loose and the body was in the vise, and then I was trying to press this in from here, but no, it's actually, that's two pieces, is it? Or is it broken half? Hard to tell, but yeah, that'll still work. But yeah, eventually I managed to pry these both inwards, get a small long nose pair of pliers on here, and once these are pulled in, the whole thing should withdraw. But yeah, that retains that ball joint on the end. So reassembly then, obviously you just press that either side of the ball, and then they just clip in. So tiniest bit of damage to these little tabs, but I think that's going to be inevitable trying to get something like this out. The reason that was because I managed to withdraw with this earlier, and when I put it back in, it's supposed to go in this sort of angle. I think I've put it in straight, so that's why it's pulled out straight. But these do withdraw by turning them. I think it's yeah, it's counterclockwise that way and pulling out. So how's this failed then? Right, because this one isn't, maybe I can have it loose. Yeah, because this one isn't as floppy as the failed component. It's not quite as easy to get this in place. And that might work. Damn it. Oh, that work? Oh, I think that might have just self-located. Not quite, but we can get it there. Right, so managed to get it in all in place without disassembling any of the spring and the hinge mechanism here. I'm not sure if you did take this out. Obviously this spring would be acting against this, whether it's going to be hard to force this back in place and put the nut in if you're by yourself, or that might be an easier method of getting this pin or whatever it's called into the pedal here with this weird plastic clip thing. That's definitely not going to pop out, is it? I mean, the pedal wouldn't work if it was. Great. So that's all back together again, and the pedal doesn't self-return, so obviously must have hydraulic pressure in the spring of the clutch mechanism itself, so hopefully act against the hydraulics and push the pedal back out each time. Can stay on for now. Now what we'll do while it's still off the car is just make sure that this comes out all the way, just to make fitting this a bit easier, because I think that's going to be the hardest bit to put in. Hey. Yep, so this pulls and locks outwards. I don't know whether I should keep it in until it's in the car so this doesn't hit anything, or whether I make it easier for myself just to locate the line and just push this back in place. I'll go with this for now, I think, and then if I find it is fouling anything, well, it might end up, as I refit this, it might end up just getting pushed back in anyway, but at least we know what we're looking for to open it up again. You should just be able to see it, that the clip on the bottom there did survive the fettling, and I just have to push the hydraulic line, double check the top hat seal thing is on it, which it is. So I'll just push that in as far as it will go, and then slide the clip inwards. Well, I think she's in. I'll find out once it's got a brake fluid feed again. When you press the, let's get the light on here. Once you press the clutch in, if it shoots a load of fluid out the bottom, I know it's not sealed properly. Check the clips right in. I've got to go the other side. Clip's definitely all seated home, isn't it? Yeah, so what I'll do now is I'll completely tighten the pedal to the bulkhead now, so that'll be secure, and then I'll double check, obviously the hydraulic line's done, then we can put the feed pipe back in. That's the grey one, which I've stuck up higher than the reservoir so it won't leak, and that electronic-y plug doohickey. These are technical terms, you know. So I'm tightening up the bolts here for the pedal box, and I found an extra one on the deck. So yeah, I shined a light at the top here. Can we see it? There. Oh, there it is. So yeah, that little thing there. Well, yeah, obviously my trying to feed it on with the socket here didn't work. So yeah, I'm gonna have to struggle with that as well. But yeah, it's just these 3 bolts. I don't know what the torque is, but yeah, obviously just doing that nice and tight, and then we can start look to getting some bleeding done. The good thing with the pedal still being down, unless there's hydraulic pressure, well, at least I hope that's the reason, is that it makes it a lot easier tightening up these bottom 2. Top one was a bit of a fiddle, but I just got to go up there again just to nip it up, but it is in place. I just obviously didn't put enough force on it and give it enough turns. So also a little fiddly is replacing this bar bracket thing, and you can see that's where it is behind that spring. Look, I just used the long reach extension bar on a long reach socket just to get to it and obviously view it from this area. No good. Right, so the last little bit, have to refit this. So this yeah, the HVAC thing, that's a little bit fiddly to get back in place. I mean, it does just fit over an aperture where the warm or cold air is coming out of this side. If like me, the clip comes off, there it is, that one. So if the clip comes off of the fork thing at the back when you remove it, take the screw all the way out and fit the clip to the bit here coming off the fuse box area, because you won't be able to slide it back on the whole body of the thing. So yeah, just pop that on there, and then it's just a simple case of screwing it in. I just did it with a ratchet with the T20 or whatever it is on here, but inside. But you might be able to do it with something that can access it through here. I did try using an articulated bit, but it's actually easier to get there with my hand inside. Right, so that's everything plumbed back up here, so it's definitely in place, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, the feed pipe does just literally pop over the top here, so that's now in place, and same with the electric thing. It's just a push fit. It did take quite a bit of force actually, so careful careful where you're pressing it from, don't pinch up any of the wires. If something goes wrong there, God knows what we're doing. So, because there's been a bit of a leak as well, we're going to have low brake fluid which will need to be topped up, but some of it's got to go into the clutch system anyway, so topping this up is inevitable. Right, so for the bleed nipple, it's actually an 11mm. I haven't been able to find a bit of pipe or anything I can put on there, but just for now, let's get fluid actually going to it. Cool, ain't I got any, see if I got any blue roll. Oh, that's odd, I thought I had some blue roll, but I haven't, or it's just not here at the moment. It's probably with my brake bleeding kit, which I need at the moment. So yeah, I'll just have to sacrifice one of these microfiber cloths. So that's cracked open. I could do with having it a half turn really, but it's sort of opened just 90 degrees. I'm trying not to lose this dust cover. I'll put this up here. So what I'll try and do now is start getting the fluid down to here by pumping the pedal. That's also a way of seeing if that this is sealed properly as well. Nothing. Plus side, there's nothing down there either. Just double check. Let's open this a bit more then. It's like a full turn now. Oh, what's coming out already? Oh, okay, so yeah, have that a good full turn then. Yes, I squirted it everywhere, but without a pipe on there I can't actually properly bleed it, so at least we've now got fluid going to it. Nothing from there. But it still hits the deck, so right, this is what I managed to come up with. This is a bit of fuel line I've found. I'm not sure how well it's over the bleed nipple, but what I'm hoping is the air and obviously fluid will make its way up here so no air can get back in, and then if it does start leaking out of here, well, I'll know there's enough fluid going through it if it's coming out into this bag here, just so it doesn't go everywhere. Just another seal to be aware of, there's this one here. This is what holds the master cylinder reservoir to master cylinder pipe in place. Of having a bit of a nightmare with it, to be honest. I was just checking that this was actually getting fluid feed into it. I just can't get it to bleed at all, so I've taken it off and it is slowly running out, which I assume is enough to fill it because it can't need that much, but yeah, it's not going well so far. But yeah, so I pulled the pipe off and then couldn't get it back on. That's because the seal stayed with the master cylinder down there, so I'm just going to push this back in here and then hopefully it will reattach. Right, so this is turning into a bit of a nightmare really, but this is the stage we're at now. You see this pipe here, that's the end of the hydraulic clutch line that comes to the slave cylinder. Now I'm not getting any fluid at the slave cylinder. I did originally. I started to pump the pedal and you can hear the sort of sound of fluid moving basically, and opening the bleed nipple on the slave cylinder, I put this cloth around it and fluid was coming out, and then I shut it off, pump the pedal again like you're supposed to, but there's still absolutely no resistance at all. And then when I next opened it and I'm pumping the clutch, when I say pumping it, you have to actually lift it up with your hand and push it down like this, if I haven't shown you that already. There's no resistance, there's no pressure building up whatsoever, so I just need to, what I have done, just in case, because it is possible, because there was fluid coming out of it initially, and then of course when I've locked off the bleed nipple, it's forced hydraulic pressure down here with a new master cylinder. I'm wondering if it, I mean it's very unlikely, but it could happen. Could that have basically ruptured the slave cylinder because there's, I don't know, maybe an increased pressure because it's a stronger master cylinder? I wouldn't have thought so, because obviously a master cylinder either works or it doesn't, because if it's once it's leaking fluid and the pressure drops, then you've got problems, and it doesn't last very long. So it should be at maximum pressure all the time. I mean, it could be weeping past seals perhaps, and I don't know. So what I've done is I've ordered the master cylinder. That should be here later today. So in the meantime, what I've had to do is to get this bloody pipe off. It's similar to the one that's on the master cylinder. You've got this top hat seal, if you can just see it there. You've got to make sure that's on. But the slave cylinder, the circlip's pointing this way, so I've had to use where is it? There it is. I've had to use this type of hook tool. I couldn't get the round one in. You've got such little room down there. I've popped the circlip off, forced it all the way right most as it go. But to access that area, normally you'd take that pipe off first if you can get to it, but I didn't want to be taking the battery out. There's tons of the gear linkage bracketry here. You have got a little bit of movement and play. Oh, I'll show you the circlip actually. Yeah, so that's the circlip, because what was happening was, because it's been put on this way, I've seen some of these on Volkswagens, they're on, you'd have thought they'd be the same, but no. The Volkswagen Golf, I've seen a slave cylinder on, the circlip moves out this way, so you've got plenty of room because that's where the body of the slave cylinder is. But on this, it was facing this way, so you've got it out like this. I've had to unbolt the slave cylinder to be able to get access the union, or whatever you'd call it, the join where the pipe goes in. But a slave cylinder's actually got a spring inside. It's spring loaded to push the plunger or rod back out each time. So what was happening was, of course, it was pressing against the side of some metalwork down here and pushing the circlip back in. So I've had to basically pretend I had free hands, and I've had to use a tool to hold this out while pushing force against the spring in the slave cylinder back in the body. But what I ended up doing was just putting one of the bolts back in, so it still had some movement, so I could actually access it, because otherwise it fouls. There's this aluminium bracket that you could just see under the pipe. Yeah, I put that back in, and then this pipe, even what I did with the circlip in the end, because I was getting fed up with it, is I've pulled it out, and then I've just twisted on it for ages and actually broke the thing off, because I'm replacing the slave now anyway. And but this pipe still wouldn't come out. I've had to wobble it backwards and forwards. I've tried gently, because again I've got the replacement seals, but this plastic area right at the end here, I mean, you can put a screwdriver in there and try and prise it out, but in the end what I did is tighten the bolt down on the slave cylinder even more, because once the circlip was off, I know there was nothing physically securing it other than the the aged seal that it's created, and I've just got to hope it reseals, because I don't have a replacement seal for this. So I've just gently wobbled the pipe up and down, back and forward for ages and ages, and eventually it gave. So here it is, and that's the stage we're at now. And what I need to do is just to make sure, so I've put the cloth back down here, I just need to make sure fluid is going to come out of here to feed the slave cylinder. So that's what I'll be doing next, and hopefully we won't have to wait long for the new cylinder. Now it's still a disaster. It's that zoomed in. Yeah, I've pumped the pedal up and down 10 times and nothing's coming out of here as yet. So yeah, for some reason there's no fluid actually getting to the system. What I'll do is I'll take the lid off of the brake reservoir here, so which is a pain because this thing's on it, makes it difficult to leave the lid off, but yeah, I'll leave that off in case it's creating a bit of vacuum pressure. But then I've already taken this off to inspect it, and there was I'm not sure how fast it's supposed to flow out, but I mean, it was sort of dripping. And I'll make sure this is fully topped off again. But earlier I was using one of the one-man brake bleed kits, so I had the cap on here with pressure going into it. So I mean that should have fed this. Right, well, there is obviously plenty of fluid in here. The max line is near the top, but that's for when this silly thing's in there with a plunger which pushes it right up to the top. So if I fill this to the brim, when I put the cap back on, it'll obviously overfill and spill out all over the place. But of course, I think some of these the clutch has probably got a separate sort of compartment in this reservoir. So I might just have to put a bit of weight on it, but just make sure that's not leaking again. I've checked several times, but the slightest bit of, it's not like running out. Yeah, it might have been from, the trouble is, because it was already leaking, it's probably residue from what was there earlier. Let's clean it off. Oh, this is interesting. I've been filling this up to the top, and it's slowly made its way back down again, so maybe that, oh, you see, it hasn't gone down, it seems to have stopped there, but, oh no, is that still going? Yeah, it's that compartment theory, especially as I'm on the tiniest bit of a hill forwards, but I mean, it shouldn't really make a difference. But yeah, that is going down, look. Just hope that's a step ahead. Ah, well, found out where the fluid's going now, look. Fantastic. Well, sort of. Right, I don't know what you can see from here, but I've now got the inenviable task of removing the slave cylinder with all this stuff in the way, but luckily the master cylinder here gave me really good practice. So yeah, like I said earlier, I managed to take one of the bolts out this side. I only replaced this one just to hold the slave cylinder back in place, but yeah, I've put a bag over the dripping pipe there, which yeah, I can't complain about, because that's what I want. I need the fluid actually getting down to here, because that's the issue I was having earlier. But yeah, so I've been using this stubby, let's zoom out now, been using this stubby spanner. This is a fantastic, I've got a set of these, just makes getting into these awkward areas a lot better, because even some of these fancy ratchet in spanners and such like, and the where is it, there we go, oops, I'll get that in a minute. Yeah, even these like thin long reach spanners, they can't always you haven't always got the movement to turn it, so having these stubby ones is very useful. So yeah, I've just basically got to take this last nut out. The pipe's already off and there's nothing else on here. There's a lot less going on apart from the fact that it's spring loaded. So you'll find there's still always tension against the bolt because of the spring inside the slave cylinder. But obviously originally this was supposed to be how to change a master cylinder, clutch master cylinder on this car, not a slave cylinder, so it's only going to be a sort of a half how-to video. I'm not going to be able to show you this step by step, because this wouldn't really be how you'd do it. You would want to actually prepare to have to take the battery out, like make sure you've got the customer's radio code and such like. And plus on modern cars, I mean, I don't like taking the batteries off if I can help it, because voltage drops tend to cause problems with all this other electronic gobbledygook on here, and it throws engine codes which I can't clear. So I'm just going to struggle try and get this in and out the best I can, and then I'll just let you know what I've had to do with the slave cylinder once I've got it to hand to show you. Right, so good news and good news. I've got the old cylinder out. This is the orientation it actually is in the car from under the bonnet, secured to the gearbox bell housing by these two bolts here. So like I say, this is spring loaded. A load of fluid did shoot out of here, so I mean I don't think this is actually ruptured, but I'm gonna well, I have to now, because I've had to break this to basically take the pipe off. But yeah, unlike the master cylinder, you can actually hear like a movement of air and fluid, because it's obviously not sealed now. But here's the new one anyway. I mean, they're cheap enough, so And to be honest, I did have I do know in the past where I've dealt with clutches whether a certain cylinder fails. Well, once the customer's gone, they've driven off, they come back a few weeks later because if you've replaced the slave, the master cylinder tends to go. If you replace the master cylinder, the slave cylinder tends to be not far behind it. So at least we can be confident, well, provided everything all works correctly. If there's issues anywhere else and that, I think this would have defeated me. But yeah, at least we've got a new master and slave cylinder, and obviously new fluid all the way in between. So the whole hydraulics have been refreshed. So part of the plan to get this in, again, I can't really show you because I'm doing it the wrong way. If you would take, because I'll just basically have to save time, and I don't want to take the battery off like I explained earlier. So to get this out, I'm going to put this in the same way. I'm going to actually feed it from under where the air pipe is. So I actually got it out from back here, and I fed it under the hydraulic lines and the gear linkages, and had it going right as close to the bottom of the bell housing as possible. That's the way I'm going in anyway. I took the last one out that way. You see that brake fluid absolutely everywhere now. I'm gonna have to try and clean up the best I can. And then there's just enough room where you can start to feed, well, it might be famous last words, where you can start to feed the piece with the bellows on into the gearbox bell housing and turn the back of the cylinder itself. However, I need to refit this with the circlip that gave me trouble before. The replacement is exactly the same. It comes out this way, meaning that, so when I try and feed this back in, it's going to be pressing the circlip in, and I'm not going to be able to get to it to be able to pull it back out again. So what I might do is maybe there's a way I can keep this in until it's actually in position and then release it. If I could use a bit of tape or something maybe. And then the circlip I'll need to have out, so I could have something like a peg in there, because what I don't want is anything that will break off and hold it open so I can't close it when it's in situ, or even if there's a little bit I'm not aware of still left in there, that might create a little weakness and mean that the pipe can eventually pop off in use. So yeah, got to figure something out and go from there. So what I've done is I've actually used the bung that goes in here to try and hold this the circlip open. What I've got to make sure this doesn't like rip off and pull the clip off with it, because then I'll need to order another. Oh, in case you're wondering, these things are actually in plastic moulding, a way to get the dates. So this one here, 1 to 12 is the month. So this was made on December 2016, so it's quite an old part. This was a bit of plastic anyway, was moulded in 2016. Yeah, around Christmas time. Anyway, let's fit it. Right, so slave cylinders in. I've managed to get the pipe. It didn't quite go according to plan. I couldn't find anything that was strong enough to hold the spring back, so my idea was I was just going to feed it in as far as it could go, up to the angle where I didn't really have any more turn, and I was going to just push it in with my thumb to try and guide it in the rest of the way. But unfortunately what ended up happening was the bag I had to catch the brake fluid coming out of the hydraulic line, that had snagged up with it all and was causing loads of issues. It's come off the hydraulic line. I've got brake fluid pissing out all over the place. It's running out through the under tray now, underneath the car. The reason I'm looking at the under tray is because I ended up dropping one of the bolts, and because these modern cars you can't get to anything, I can't reach down and get there, and it hasn't even fallen to the driveway because it's got an under tray. Now the under tray is a joke. It's got Torx bolts all around it, so I've undone one to try and pull it down a bit and get my hand in, but that's not working because it's all interlocked with other stuff around the car. So I actually have to jack the whole car up and undo the entire under tray, drop that down just to get this bloody bolt out. And I suppose while I'm under there I might as well try and clean up and soak up as much of the brake fluid as I can. Meanwhile, I don't even know if because what happened was, as I was pulling it round and the bag and everything was getting snatched, I actually ripped out the white bung that I had in there to hold the circlip out, and it had pushed the circlip back in, but I did manage to use a pick and open it up and insert the line, but I don't know if it's damaged anything by doing that, and of course I can't really test or do anything until I've got both bolts into the slave cylinder, so it's secured back in the bell housing, and then I can start making sure that the pipe and hydraulics are in place and are going to maintain pressure. But for now, I've got to tackle this under tray. 20 to 30 minutes later, just to pick this back up. Now, a clever man, before refitting the under tray, would make sure the bolt's in place in case he drops it again. So I'll do that now. Just to mention that the under tray is a bit bizarre because it's held in by different sized Torx bolts. You've got T25 and T27 Torx bolts or screws, if you look at them. On this car, all the ones down the side, somebody's used like aftermarket self tappers in there, which is probably better, to be honest, because you can undo. It's a posi drive self tapper, which you can undo with a Phillips or a posi, so pretty much any of the sizes. So I don't know if that's made it easier or not, but yeah, the under tray on this, you have to undo one bolt at the front, 3 at the back, all the ones along the side, and then it will drop backwards. But it's got like a knobbly like insulation type of stuff on it, or whatever it's supposed to be. Might even be to catch drips of oil and such like. But yeah, so I can't really wipe it down because I just have to let the brake fluid run out as much as possible. But I've got the bolt, that's the main thing anyway. Just means that I'll have to tell the customer just to be wary that it is going to be dripping copious amounts of brake fluid, just while it works its way down the engine block and onto the end of the tray. But it can't be helped because this this job was supposed to be changing a master cylinder, and it's turned into twice as much work than just that, and that was hard enough. And plus I don't even know if this is all going to work yet. I won't find out until I've fitted this new slave cylinder and got it all bolted up. So once I've got this fairly secure, actually, in the a few turns into the gearbox bell housing, I'll get the under tray on, get it back off the axle stands, and then carry on from there. Oh, right, well, the moment of truth. I did leave the under tray off actually, and the car jacked up because the light from outside is coming underneath the car now, so it helps see things a little bit better. I say a little bit because it's still difficult, but every little helps when it's pitch black under there. Right, so I'll try and zoom in. So this is an 11mm spanner, which is the size of the bleed nipple on the slave cylinder. I've already pumped the pedal up and down. It says 10 times on some of the online workshop manuals I've seen, but I've done it 15 anyway, because I think we've lost quite a bit of fluid from all this, all the issues we saw earlier. But I'm going to crack this off probably about, I don't know, there's not much room in here. And there really isn't. I'm going to try and use a stubby then. Oh, there we go. So that's about half a turn, is it? Have we seen any fluid come out yet? Yeah, so I'm going to pump the pedal again, I don't know, 5 times, close it back off, keep trying that. Well, it's impossible. I can't get fluid to the slave cylinder. I've replaced the master cylinder, the slave cylinder. I've felt as far along as the hydraulic line as I can to feel for in case the pipe itself was split or something, but it just doesn't make any sense. I've put a vacuum line on the end of the slave here to try and suck it through. I've been pumping the pedal God knows how many times. I've brimmed this off, so I mean that must be because it was sinking and it must be going into the master cylinder, but the fluid's just not appearing at the slave, so I'm not sure what the hell's going on. Well, I thought I'd give this another go. I've had to go on foot into town to basically buy the entire supply of brake fluid they had, because well, I've got about 2 litres of it all over the engine bay and all over the driveway now. But I thought I'd give this one more try, these one-man brake bleed things, but this was nearly full when I started. You can just see it's in the pipe, but of course when I was bleeding it through, eventually I basically had to have this connected at quite high pressure. I think the tyre, they say maximum 20 psi. I mean, it does leak from here anyway. You can see it's all spilled out. But the tyres are probably quite low anyway. They've got really low from the first time, so I'd imagine it's somewhere between sort of 10 and 12 psi now, which seems to be a better pressure to operate these at. This bloody regulator doesn't make sense at all. There's instructions. To the instructions it says ensure that the regulator is in the closed position, you see, and so on and off. Well, what's closed then? It's a regulator, it's supposed to close, and so on and off, I don't know, but I assumed that having it screwed all the way down would stop air getting in, but no, it didn't. Once I had it connected to the tyre, even at a much lower than its maximum pressure, it was still blowing brake fluid out from here, so that's the best I could get it done anyway. But when I was doing this, I basically cracked open the bleed nipple and had to do it like a full turn, maybe a turn and a half, which is way more than you're supposed to. But of course, because I'm not actually sucking anything from this side and nothing's being pulled back, but nothing will get through the thread, so of course I started getting fluid coming out. So I turned it back in, so it's about 1 turn undone, and then started pumping the brake pedal, and then I started to feel a slight bit of resistance, and the joy I felt then was fantastic. But so I've gone through a process of basically kept this under pressure. I closed this off again, pumped the brake pedal a few times with a bit of pressure at the bottom, where it won't actually stay at the bottom anymore, and then when I open the bleed nipple half a turn, which is what you're supposed to do, but hardly any, wasn't getting any fluid or air movement at all earlier, I went back to pump the pedal again, and it is you do for a while I had to manually lift the pedal up. I've done that about 4 times, that process. I've closed this back up. Excuse my rotting shoes. So I now have a pedal at long last, and it feels like shit. And more to the point, the fact is, listen. So when it gets to the bottom, it's making a horrible clicking sound. Which I don't really know what. I mean, I imagine it's the fact that it's got the, well, it's a cheaper part, I suppose, than the OE, but it's Borg and Beck, which isn't exactly a, it's not total crap. I can't really do much else now. This will have to be it. Maybe it's that white clip that went inside the pedal, but I'm not even going to deal with that now. This has been such a job. I can't even express how frustrating this has been. But yeah, bottom line is I've got to go back to the customer. I did slightly overquote because I wasn't sure about doing the job and getting the... this is just for a master cylinder. And of course I ended up breaking the clip off of the slave cylinder. I've changed that anyway as a matter of course, but of course I haven't quoted for that. Hours wise, I've been filming, so what I normally do if I film any jobs when I get to bring them back home, or if it's people I know, then I just basically just it's double the time that because I'm spending half the time filming. Obviously I can't charge for that, so all in all this is actually I've probably put about 9 hours into this, not including the filming, and I've had to basically fork out for sort of 16 quid for the new slave cylinder, so you can imagine how good quality that is. I've probably used it's 2 litres of, and I'm not well, actually I am exaggerating because I've still got a 500ml bottle left, so 1.5 litres then, plus what's remaining as excess in the bleed kit. I'm well out of pocket here, but obviously I'll have to just charge the maximum I've quoted, and hope and just let them know that there's nothing I could do about that clicking noise. But to be honest, I haven't even tried to move the car yet. Obviously the clutch bite and that might be non-existent, so yeah, it's not over yet. So not that it really matters because fluid's all over the place anyway, and it's pissed out again here. But these things, I've used them before, and it's well, once you've bled it and done the job, and it says that's a minimum level that you shouldn't let it fall below. Well, what are you supposed to do with all the excess fluid that's in the? So when I take this cap off, it's going to go absolutely everywhere. So I assume you just have to soak it up with cloths, which is what I'm going to do now. brought me to my knees, this one. Anyway, the job's done finally. I'm not quite happy with the way the clutch is. It's making like a clicking sound when you press it all the way to the floor. It's like it's now allowing you to press the clutch further in. I did try and bulk it out with a couple of these, you know, things that you put on the bottom of like wooden furniture to stop them scratching floors. I tried to put a couple of those on the back of the pedal just to see if it would act as like a block. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked. There is actually a hole and a bung in it, which it does look like it can actually accept some kind of block to keep the clutch pedal a little bit higher, because as far as the car's concerned, when it says press clutch to start, you don't have to press it all the way down to where it's making the clicking noise, which and the bike point's really high. Obviously I didn't know what it was like before, where the clutch bite was before the problems occurred, and it might just be a case of maybe that's slightly out of adjustment, but of course the physical pedal itself will keep like knocking the rod into the like plastic thing. So that white clip and that, it seems to like flick up and down when you press the pedal in slightly too far. So when you're driving it normally and changing gear, because you don't normally press the clutch all the way to the floor, it's only when you stop at like junctions and go into first again, that's when you get the click. But it is what it is. It's going to have to stay like that, because basically I've come to the end of my tether with it, and I won't be doing anything more on this car. Obviously I'll just explain that to the customer, and at least it's running and driving. I can get it back there to them, so I'm sure they're pleased that they're going to have a car to rely on again. You might have noticed I've given it a quick wash, because there's so much brake fluid everywhere. I've given the engine bay a good rinse down, but where I've touched parts of the panels, obviously I don't want the paint to start lifting or fading within the next few days. So I've given it a good scrub up, acid wash the wheels, just makes the car look a little bit nicer on return anyway. So thanks so much for watching. I think this is going to be a long one by the time it's all edited together, but please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you in the next one.